Hello and welcome. Just over a week ago, the United Nations Security Council extended the mandate of United Nations mission in Nepal, or UNMIN, by 4 months. That means UNMIN will remain with us till 15th of September. This is the 6th time UNMIN's term has been extended. However, there are certain issues about the UNMIN term extension that still confuses many. For one, UNMIN chief has said that it would be very difficult to finish the peace process within 4 months. On the other hand, UNMIN's stay for almost 3 years has not been free from controversy as well. It has also faced criticism. To talk about this, we have UNMIN chief Karin LandGren in our studios. Welcome to our studios, Ms. LandGren.
Thank you.
You've been a busy person these days, meeting political leaders every morning, and it continues throughout the day. How has it been?
Well, this is a critical moment in the peace process. And I came back from New York last week from the Security Council and the recent extension of the mandate that you mentioned. So partly I want to brief the leaders on what is being said in the Security Council about the peace process and the content of our most recent mandate. Partly, of course, I want to hear from them how they see the resolution of the current crisis with the looming deadline of the Constituent Assembly.
We are almost sure, though it is yet to be officially announced, that a Constituent Assembly may not be able to finish writing Constitution by the deadline it has already been given. But in the wake of your coming back from Security Council and meeting all these leaders, what do they say about this? What do they say about the mandate that has been given? Are they comfortable with the 4-month period that has been given?
I'm being asked by many whether 4 months is sufficient. I was misquoted as saying that 4 months is not long enough for UNMIN. The real question is 4 months enough for the political parties? For UNMIN to be able to leave, either the integration rehabilitation question needs to be well on its way to being sorted out, or we need to be able to hand over our monitoring responsibilities to someone else. What all the parties agree on is that it should be an orderly departure. It should be a departure that contributes to confidence in the peace process and doesn't create a new sense of anxiety, doesn't leave a vacuum, doesn't leave a gap in that process. So whether the parties can reach agreement on the necessary details of integration and rehabilitation is really the question. I've been quite encouraged at the level of discussion that has taken place just over the past month.
Few weeks.
Yes.
Right.
Finally, core aspects of integration and rehabilitation are out on the table and they're in the media. It's quite extraordinary looking back over the last 3.5 years, that only in the last few months has the numbers question come out in the open. Right now there's a lot of focus on numbers, but there are other details that need to be negotiated as well.
So would you say that the numbers that are being discussed with this, 3,000 or 30,000, it should have been discussed quite some time back? It should have been probably discussed 3 years ago when the peace process was, peace accord was being signed.
Different countries approach their peace agreements differently. In some countries you have every last detail negotiated ahead of time, so it's just a matter of implementation. Here a different route was taken, which was to keep many of the agreements quite broad and leave the details to be sorted out later. Perhaps that is all that could be agreed at the time. But yes, we would have liked to see parties get to work immediately on addressing some of these critical details. And as we've seen with the numbers question, it's not easy, it's not straightforward. But this is the path that was chosen. The bodies that were set up to work more on integration and rehabilitation, the Special Committee and the Technical Committee, also took time to get off the ground and functioning because everything again was subject to political negotiation. And that's the part that takes time.
You said that it could be difficult given the political parties do not agree. What are the things that you think are not being agreed upon, and what are the hurdles which may affect the peace process, and your tenure in for 4 more months that you've got may not be enough? What could be the reasons? I'm probably talking something very negative, but are there possibilities that 4 months may not be enough at all?
The last mandate UNMIN was given was for 4 months. There were hopes that because of the CA deadline, the necessary work would be done in this period. Clearly, that time, 4 months, was not sufficient. I hope that in the current round of discussion and negotiation, there will be agreement on critical implementation aspects of integration and rehabilitation. And that means, looking at what we learned from the discharge process a few months ago, the planning process is extremely important. One reason the discharge went smoothly and could all be implemented within 1 month, which is really quite extraordinary, is that the parties and the UN had had a long time to plan. So we are trying to emphasize the importance of good planning, good process, and also that there should be an oversight body, some sort of monitoring body. One thing we can say for sure is that once the process begins, there will be problems that need to be ironed out. There needs to be a place dissatisfied parties can go to see those problems resolved in a satisfactory way.
So you're talking about one agency at the national level which addresses these things?
Why not? Nepal has experience of a national monitoring body. With the Ceasefire Code of Conduct in 2006, there was the National Peace Monitoring Committee, and that worked, as far as I know, completely satisfactorily. The peace agreement itself foresaw national oversight bodies, monitoring bodies, but they were never set up. The only peace monitoring body that was ever established after 2006 was the Joint Monitoring Coordination Committee. That's for
what about the Peace Ministry that we have?
The Peace Ministry plays a very important role in the peace process, but I think we've seen that with changes in government, the Peace Ministry also changes to fit the color of the moment, the political leadership.
What we are
you
talking
need an
about
impartial.
Here, what we are talking about
body.
A strong monitoring agency at national level, which is not taking sides of the government or the opposition.
One of the problems in the peace process that everyone comes back to is the lack of trust, the lack of confidence. So to expect that as implementation of particular aspects begins, that the parties can simply sit together and come to agreement is unrealistic. I think there needs to be a third party, a National Peace Committee or the like, national monitoring body, that has enough trust, that is viewed as unbiased, as nonpartisan, that can be counted on to try and keep the process on track. Otherwise, when commitments aren't met, aren't fulfilled, as we're seeing now, everything risks just turning into a blame game, turning into a political weapon for parties to use against one another.
We've had that quite a lot in recent times. And can you practically say that it's possible to have a national monitoring agency when we have this habit of having commissions and which have members from every political party coming in there? It's more about power sharing seats. So an idea of impartial national commission which monitors the peace agreement as well as the peace process.